Well, when we were shooting episode 705, that's season 7, episode 5, we were making this mud bench, and we needed to join the front rails here to the legs. Now, normally we would cut a tenon on the end of the rails, fit into a mortise in the leg, pretty good joint, but we wanted to try something a little bit different. And in this case, we were going to use what's called a loose mortise and tenon. Let me get it out of here. There we go. So in this case, we have 2 mortises and a tenon that fits in between the 2. So we've cut the 2 mortises. Now we have to go ahead and make this little loose tenon here.
Now, we really don't want to work with small pieces, so the key to it is to start with a long blank. Of course, it has to be the right thickness. So what we did is we resawed some stock, so we created this long blank that had a kind of a snug fit into the mortise.
Right, and on the show, then we also showed how we rounded over the edges of that strip to fit the rounded ends of the mortise, which is because we used a router bit, so they're round. Makes everything nice. So let's go ahead and take a look at a clip from the show that shows making these strips for this loose tenon. So how do I make all these loose tenons? Well, it starts out by just using a little scrap of wood like this. And this is actually enough to make all the loose tenons for this entire project. Well, the first step is to cut it to width to match the length of the mortise. And then I have to cut it to thickness to match the width of the mortise. And to do that, I've mounted a rip blade in the saw, and I'm using a 0 clearance insert, and then I've adjusted the distance between the fence and the blade to match the width of the mortise. With that set up, I just put the piece on the edge, then I turn on the saw and make the cut. Okay, well, I've got the strips cut to width and to thickness. Let's see how this works here. And it fits in the mortise. That's pretty good. The only problem I've got is that there's square corners and I need rounded corners to fit the mortise. Well, I'll do that over at the router table. I've mounted an 1/8 inch roundover bit, and I'll round over both sides of both edges.
Of course, now once you've got those blanks ready to cut the loose tenons to size, and the thing there is, one thing to keep in mind. We've got a cutaway of the joint here. You can see how the tenon, when we cut it to length, is shorter than the length of the mortise, provides a little gap at each end, and that's a good place for excess glue.
Right, and actually this is very key. You want this to be short. If it's long, if this tenon is too long, then the rail won't seat up against the leg, and you'll actually have a little gap there. That's not good. So, and it really doesn't hurt at all if this tenon is too short. In fact, in addition to not going ahead and letting it seat all the way, it gives a little glue relief, and that is actually a good thing.
Right. And of course, we cut all the mortises to the same depth, so really you can take these blanks, cut all the loose tenons that you're going to need for assembly.
So we'll get all that done, and the next segment here will be assembly.